Hello, everyone. My name's Fiona Deans, and I'm Chief Operating Officer of the Government Digital Service. Thanks very much to Zuntos for the opportunity to speak and for its work to make the tech industry more accessible to people from all walks of life. Building diverse, inclusive, brilliant technology teams is really important to me and everyone at GDS. It's our job at GDS to serve the people of the UK, people who don't all look or think or act exactly alike. So it's pretty obvious that our people shouldn't look, think or act alike either. Having diverse teams filled with intelligent, energetic and empowered people helps us widen our field of vision and challenges the status quo. A career in technology should be open to absolutely everyone. So what is GDS? GDS was set up in 2011 and is part of the Cabinet Office. We've got hubs in London, Bristol and Manchester, and we exist to make interacting with government better for citizens and to make government more efficient and user-focused by using digital tools, techniques and ways of working. We do this through things like GovUK and Government as a Platform. Government as a Platform, or GAP, as we call it, is our set of centrally built common tools for government. They stop teams wasting time, effort and money reinventing the wheel. For example, government doesn't need 45 different ways to take or make payments. It just needs one really good one. And that's what we built. It's called GovUK Pay, and it's processed billions of transactions in the last year alone. And GovUK, of course, is the single and trusted online destination for government information and services. And it's one of the top 10 most used websites in the UK. And in our time so far, GDS have achieved some pretty remarkable stuff. So 2000, that's how many different government websites existed before we came along and created GovUK. 17.6 million. That's how many people visited GovUK for information services on average per week this year. 1.6 billion, that's how many messages our notifications product called GovUK Notify helped the public sector deliver in the last 12 months. And well over 100 million of those were to quickly let people know the results of their COVID tests. You probably have received one of those yourself. 1,500, that's how many attendees from across the UK came to our last in-person event called Sprint in 2019. We held events in Edinburgh, Cardiff, Belfast, Leeds and London. And we had over 100 speakers across those events, which included the Paymaster General and Minister for the Cabinet Office and the Chief Executive of the Civil Service. The events brought together digital professionals from across government to showcase how digital transformation is improving people's lives and to consider how we can all work together to build a world-leading digital nation. 4.7 million is the number of parcels of essential supplies that were delivered to over 500,000 shielding people as a result of our work on the clinically extremely vulnerable people service. And 4 days is how long it took us to set that service up with several partners across the government, the NHS and major supermarkets. So we've achieved so much in the last 10 years, but a lot has changed. So unlike 10 years ago, people expect government services to be available at the touch of a button 24/7, and for these services to be quick, simple and digital. People are in charge now, and the mobile phone is their superpower. We agree, so we're working on how we can deliver a simple, joined up and personalised experience of government for everyone. The end goal is to make it clearer and faster for users to interact with government and for government to deliver better services by being able to better anticipate what users need. There are quite a number of challenges ahead, but this is an exciting and innovative time to be at GDS as we trial new ways of doing things to give users the modern, digitally enabled experience of government that they expect and deserve. So, for example, often government needs to have a certain level of confidence that a person accessing a service is who they say they are to protect users and make online services secure. But at the moment, there are many ways to sign on to different government services, and too often users have to enter the same data again and again, which is frustrating and time consuming. So we're building a new single sign-on and identity checking system. As well as giving people a seamless joined-up experience of government, this programme will make online services more inclusive by exploring ways that users without common ID, like passports and driving licenses, can also prove their identity when needed. Now at GDS, we take learning and development very seriously. To do great work, we need great people working at their best. We recognise that digital and technology industry moves fast, and so do the types of skills and expertise required, which is why this is a priority for us. If you joined us, we can help you build your skills and develop your career. I joined the civil service from the private sector 3 years ago and have been blown away by the learning opportunities. I've found an amazing mentor and have had training in leadership and things like managing finance in the civil service. At any one time, different people in my team will be having formal professional training, leadership and management training, coaching, mentoring, shadowing, and they'll also be supported by different networks. So for example, the Women's Network in GDS are spearheading career development training sessions at the moment. So I obviously think GDS is a great place to work. It's somewhere you can be yourself, you can learn from incredible and passionate colleagues and work on platforms, products and services that genuinely make a difference to millions of people every day. We foster an open culture for staff to share their work with each other, and staff are also invited to contribute their experience, expertise and ideas. We create safe spaces and encourage staff to not only share their successes, but also, really importantly, their failures in order for the organisation to share in the lessons learned. We're really keen that people bring their whole selves to work, and we have over 30 staff-led diversity and social networks, such as the Social Mobility Network, for which I'm the champion, the Women's Network I mentioned before, the Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic Network, a GDS charity group, and there's even a chocolate club, something for everyone. GDS's network and social clubs are a great way for colleagues to connect and socialise, especially throughout the pandemic. So I appreciate that as the COO, I might be a bit biased. So don't just take it from me. I'd like to welcome Alessia Tosi to the virtual stage. She's been at GDS for 2 years today. Happy work anniversary, Alessia.
Thanks very much, Fiona, and hi, everyone. I'm really happy to have the opportunity to share my experience of working as a data scientist at GDS. So you can see, next slide, you can see some of us squeezed in the picture. But first, I thought to tell you a bit more about how I became a data scientist at GDS. So next slide. So my background is in logic and philosophy of science of language and later cognitive science, where I did research on language processing and interaction. So a lot of A/B testing and statistical modeling of human-to-human conversations, so speech and text chat data. And I think that's where my interest really is back then and also now. So experimentation and then the intersection between data and understanding humans, so their cognition and their behavior. Next slide. So with this interesting data, I joined the statistics fast stream after my PhD, moving around government departments in various analytical roles for a couple of years, until 2 years ago today, as Fiona mentioned, when I joined GDS as an associate data scientist. And I was promoted to the role of data scientist 2 months ago. So why GDS? So what attracted me to GDS? It was mostly a combination of 3 factors. So I knew they were working with interesting data about user online behaviors to improve how users interact with online public services. They were doing cool network science, and their work was user-centered. So there was an underlying commitment to understand users and build data science solutions around user needs. So how did I know about this? Well, they blogged about it. And so I really liked this transparency and the effort to communicate complex topics, technical topics to the public, and so that the public could understand. And all this really spoke to me as it reflected my academic interest and also career ambition. Next slide. I think what may be more interesting for you is what do I actually do at GDS as a data scientist and other data scientists with me in my team. Next slide. So as a data scientist, we are currently embedded in the Gov.uk team, and you might have interacted with the Gov.uk website yourself. And my role as a data scientist is to enable Gov.uk and the teams behind Gov.uk to understand its users through high quality insights, but also by building personalized and proactive services. So what does this actually mean? So as a team of data scientists, we build machine learning products, we learn and experiment with new techniques, and also share data science knowledge. I'm aware this is still quite a bit abstract, so I thought to mention a few of the projects I was personally involved with since joining. Next slide. So most of my work, as I mentioned, is for Gov.uk, so the website. So on Gov.uk, people can access government information and services. So a service could be something like applying for driving license. So in the picture, you can see an example of the real paths that users have taken between pages in one particular service on Gov.uk. If I remember correctly, this is actually buying a fishing license. So you can see how dense, complex, and definitely not linear the path that users have taken are. So what we've been working on is to find patterns and so insight in this labyrinth of click streams by inferring the information needs of user to a page based on the navigation patterns. So it's basically trying to answer the question, what are users here for? So what do they want? So for the technical people among you and the data scientists in particular, so our approach actually has been guided by cognitive models or how people navigate website. And so we combined text data, so the content of web pages, with user web browsing data and applied a spreading activation algorithm and some smart use of matrix algebra. Another project I worked on, next slide, this concerns personalizing user navigation on Gov.uk for those users that don't have an account. Really to help them find what they may be useful, what may be useful for them early on in their journey, so that they don't have to painlessly navigate from web page to web page, right? So this is basically an online experiment. I personally developed a statistical methodology to evaluate whether the experiment worked and whether the personalization suggested actually were well received by the users, and to develop a quasi-experimental methodology for that. And again, for the data science among you, we started with our machine learning, developing a simple rule-based approach, and now we're actually moving on towards a more probabilistic model to recommend content to users. And finally, very briefly, next slide, I also had a chance to set up a collaboration with behavioral science researcher at the London School of Economics. And so here I use online media and social media mining techniques and some network science to examine how the media and social media users were talking about behavioral science during the pandemic, and got a paper, a scientific paper out of it, which is also nice. To give you a flavor, next slide, this is other project the team has been working on. I'm not going to go into much detail, but so we have built and are maintaining a knowledge graph database that combines information about content on Gov.uk, user movements, and metadata. We've been using graph-based algorithm to recommend content, and also applying some natural language processing technique to clickstream data to segment user. Next slide. It's not just the technical aspects of the project that I like at GDS. There are other factors that makes me enjoy being a data scientist here. So the first one is that I work in a very interdisciplinary team, so not just data scientists, but also service and interaction designers, user researchers, developers, product and delivery managers. So really constantly learning from colleagues with a diverse range of specialist skills and experiences. And this also means actually that we are encouraged to share ideas, brainstorm around problems and solutions together, and experiment. Next slide. As a data scientist at GDS, I'm also part of a very active cross-government data science community. So this translates to lots of developing opportunities, so something that Fiona also touched upon. So from regular shared learning sessions around specific topics like natural language processing or data engineering, then we have data science conference, festival, and a mentoring scheme. But it also means that support is available a click away. So we have a cross-government data science Slack. It's really a place where to ask for help or share ideas and get feedback. I'm also personally involved in the cross-government data ethics studying groups. But maybe the most important factor why I enjoy GDS. So I'm sure you're familiar with the data science Venn diagram that you can see in the top left corner of the slide. So that's where computer science meets maths and stats, meets domain expertise. So the perfect spot where data science is supposed to live. But through my work at GDS, I also found out that data science is much more than that. It's working on projects that I find meaningful and that have a positive impact on people. It's supporting others to grow and learning from others. So in the end, data science is a teamwork. And it's thinking out of the box, so keeping an open mind and not being afraid to question and experiment. And yeah, I've really been enjoying it so far. Thank you.
Sorry, I think that's back to me. So thanks very much, Alessia. Fantastic to hear about your experiences in GDS and how you've been able to develop and grow your career here. So if that sounds good to you who's watching, check out our careers site. It's gdscareers.gov.uk, where you can see our current openings. I think that's going to be shared in the chat with you, so you can access it. We've got some great roles coming up for enthusiastic people who are setting out their career in tech. So roles that will give you a solid foundation, see you working on interesting stuff from day one and give you room to grow and develop as you go along. You can also set up an alert on our career opportunities page so that you'll get pinged with the latest jobs that match your criteria. So I think we're now going to open up to questions.
The first one is for you, Alicia. And the question is, what's the most challenging aspect of working in government?
Yes, good question. I think so when you work for the public, as being a data scientist actually working for the civil servants, so there are some constraints that you might not have in the public sector that are around the sensitivity of some of the data that we use or some of the products that we need to develop. And I think that adds an extra level of responsibility and complexity to our work. And it makes it more challenging, but also at the same time more rewarding. So we need to work with the public's interest and the public best interest in mind and contribute to public trust. And I think that's what's making it challenging, but also rewarding at the same time. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. The next question was, how does the GDS push for accessibility in everything that they do?
That is a great question. So I think in a few different ways. So accessibility by design. So making sure that we're designing services to be accessible, and that can mean lots of different things. So for example, on the digital identity work that we're doing, we already have a digital identity product, but one of the issues that we've had with it is that it hasn't been that accessible to people who don't have passports and driving licenses, as I mentioned before. So we've now got a whole stream of work looking into how can we make that service open to people that have a different, digital footprint, I guess, or non-digital footprint as well. And that's really important because they're often some of the most vulnerable people in society that need that kind of support. So very keen to make sure that that is not excluded. We also have a sister organisation now called the Central Digital and Data Office, who work on guidelines for developing accessible products, and they used to be within GDS, and that's something that we really champion and have had a responsibility for making sure that across the public sector, the websites and services that are being developed are accessible to people with different types of disability. So we do it in a range of different ways.
Wonderful. Great to hear that from GDS and how they keep pushing for that. One of the other questions were, it looks like, related to data science. So the question was, what would be the best steps to start a career in data science?
The million-dollar question. I think is trying to get a foot in the door, so to say. It might not be that your first role, talking from my experience, your first role may not be data scientist, right? So you might not have data science in the title, right? So you might actually enter as a data analyst or as a performance analyst, and then have the opportunity to grow within the company or within, GDS. In our case, that could be one way. Or we also have actually junior data science positions for graduate that should be advertised, I think, this year. And I think it's just, when I think about the skill set, is having an analytical mind. So, foster your analytical mind. The foundations, right? So don't think about, deep learning, right? So get the foundations right? So statistics, some programming in Python, SQL, and be curious, have this kind of keep learning, don't get discouraged, right? So it's the amount of things that as a data scientist you're supposed to know actually is can be scary, right? So, but it doesn't have to be everything, and not everything at the same time. And yeah, just get involved maybe in hackathon or volunteer for maybe charities that need analytical support, but they don't have data scientists in the team. And don't be afraid to just apply, I would say, and get your CV and your experience actually be evaluated, rather than say, oh, I'm not ready yet.
Thank you. So believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We do have a few more questions. The next one was related to innovating. So the question is, how does GDS keep innovating, especially with companies such as Microsoft and Apple, who keep pushing new boundaries in tech?
A great question. So I think, how do I answer that question? And I think, first of all, we've got a workforce and staff who are really interested in innovation and keeping sort of an eye on technology and what's happening. And we are in contact with all those kind of organizations. So, our CEO met Apple this week just for an update on what's going on with their technology. So we keep sort of very up to date about what's going on. I think one of the sort of founding principles about GDS is not to innovate for innovation's sake. So we are building products that we want millions of people across the UK to be able to use and to transform their lives. So we use innovation in a sort of appropriate way. It's not, we're not aiming to sort of constantly be on the bleeding edge in terms of putting blockchain in everything, for example. But what we do really seek to be innovative in is how we reflect users' needs, how we make things really, really simple and accessible and relevant. And we do that a lot we do a lot of user research, a lot of, talking to people, identifying user needs, prototyping, getting products in front of people for that. And then, you know, as Alessia's been talking about, we're sort of innovative in how we're using data science to identify some of the issues that we're trying to address in terms of how people are using GovUK, for example. A lot of the innovation over the last 18 months for us, as well as for other organizations, has sort of come from the COVID pandemic and different ways of working, and people having to access services online rather than having the in-person option. So there's been a lot of innovation in government and in other industries because of that. But I think that has been like a really, even though it has been a obviously a very difficult time for people and, you know, for individuals, there has been some interesting things that have come out of it in terms of like really thinking about how to do things differently because you have to. I think that's been really interesting to be a part of.
Thanks so much for sharing all that information and wisdom. We have time for one more question. So the question was, how does GDS handle and process data at scale? Quite a big one.
I'm going to suggest you answer that, Alessia.
So the data that we are working with around how Gov.uk works and functions are user data, so the navigations, the web navigations, logs, and for that we use BigQuery in combination with Google Cloud Platform, but we also use AWS infrastructure for the content that we also use actually now for data scientists. We have built our own knowledge graph, so it's a graph database based on a Neo4j infrastructure. We're still learning actually how to, you know, just scale our data science project. But yeah, this is how we handle our data scale. I'm happy actually to answer other questions separately. Want to know more about the nitty-gritty of what we do.
Thanks a lot. That's all the questions so far. I guess, yeah, if anyone has any more questions, if you're happy for them to contact you through GDS team, they can send your questions your way.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy to.